Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm. In this video, we're going to do a couple of things, mainly focused on being able to pick up a gun object and be able to fire that object. So we're going to do quite a bit in this video, so I'm going to jump right in. I don't want to waste too much time. Um, really quickly though, I want to review what we've done just so you can get an idea of where you should be before you start this project. So we have our level built. We can walk around, we can move around in the level. Excuse me. And if we go up to the door opens and stays open. Now, we could put another trigger on this side that closes the door when we walk through it, uh, but I'm not going to worry about that. I just want to make sure that we can open doors. All right, the next thing we want to do is we want to add a gun to the level. I'm going to put it on the floor right about here. Now, I'm not going to make you, create a 3D model of a brand new gun, and I'm not going to make you go dig through the asset store to find something. I've already given you a gun asset, so this gun asset here. It's pretty easy. All we need to do, though, is we need to create a new folder to hold. Let's create a folder, and let's call it objects, I guess. And inside our objects folder, we need to drop the gun. So the gun's going to go into there. Now in here we have a gun that we can use. All right, cool. So I'm going to use this M9 here. I'm going to drop this in, and wow, that is giant. That is a big gun. So we need to shrink that down a lot. Let's go ahead and shrink. Oh, that's okay. Let's do 0.4. Let's try that. 0.4 and 0.4. It's still quite big. Oh, so let's try 0.04, 0.04, and 0.04. Okay, that's a little bit more manageable. Let's take a look at that gun now. Okay, pretty good size. Okay, so I'm gonna move him back here. Now we want to rotate him so that he can, oh, not there. Rotate on the X, looks like. Nope, not on the X. 0. On the Z. It's always the last one. And actually, it's going to be an exact 90 degrees because I want him to lay flat on the floor. Okay. Put him on the floor, slide him over that way. You know, that works. We can even put him on the crate if we want to, but that's fine. This is perfectly fine. Okay, so this M9, I actually don't want it to be named M9. I'm going to rename it and call it Fake Gun because I want this gun is not going to be the real gun that we pick up. This is going to be a gun that's on the floor that's just fake. It's just there to show us that there's a gun that we can pick up. So this is our fake gun. What we need is we need a real gun that is attached to our character. So I'm going to Control D to duplicate. I'm going to rename this to Real Gun. I'm going to make my real gun a child of the first person controller and of the first person character. So it's a child of that character. And I'm going to zero out its position and its rotation. Okay, so now if we zoom in on that gun, we can see that it is now on our first person character controller, but it's floating in the middle of the camera. If we look at our camera preview, we can see that it's like above our head. It's like we got a gun on our forehead, which is kind of cool, but not what we really want. So we need to move this down a little bit, and let's move him over, and let's move forward too. Let's see what that looks like in the, all right, maybe down a little bit more. Nope, not the camera. Maybe down a little bit more. Go back. Okay, that's about okay. That's fine. And we can play around with the position a little bit more later on. But yeah, that looks good. Now, we don't want the gun as soon as we start the game, right? Because we want to walk over and pick up this gun here. So what we want to do is take this real gun object and we're going to set it inactive. We're going to turn it off. Because when we pick this gun up, we want our real gun to become active. Okay, perfect. Now, in order to pick up this object, we need something. We did this in the last video. We actually need a collider. So I'm going to create a new cube, 3D object, cube. It'll pop it right there. And let's turn off the mesh renderer so we can see it. I'm going to put it back here, put it right there, and just put it right over our gun. Pretty easy stuff. We don't have to worry too much about it. And I want to make sure I set it to be a trigger. Okay, perfect. Now we have everything set up so that we can write a script to make this actually happen. Oh, not perfect. It was deceptive. It was floating in the air above my gun. Let's make this a little bigger. So that I can definitely pick up that gun when I walk over it. Okay, yep, now that's where it needs to be. All right, beautiful. Okay, now let's write a script. So I'm going to go to my scripts folder and I'm going to right click, create C# script. I'm going to call this pickup. Alrighty, and I'm going to open it up. Give it a second. Beautiful. Okay, so with this script, it's going to be a lot of the same as what we did in the last video. All we really need to do is first, let's get rid of these because we don't need these. We need a couple of game objects, all right, because these game objects are going to hold the real gun and the fake gun. So we're going to do public game object real gun, public game object fake gun. Okay, then we're going to create a void on trigger enter collider other, and all we're going to do is when we pick up this gun, we're going to set the real gun set active to be true, and we're going to set the fake gun set active to be false. That's it. That's all we have to do. We just turn one on and turn the other one off. Okay, so let's save that. And let's go ahead and attach that to the collider. So we'll take this pickup, attach it to this cube. I've got to really rename things. So actually, let's do it right now. Rename pickup collider. And let's make sure that's a trigger. It is. Okay, good. All right, so now when I play the game, notice my gun isn't in my hand from the very beginning, which is good. That's what I want. And when I walk over it, nothing's happening because I didn't assign my variables. Rookie mistake. All right, so if I look over here, if I have my pickup collider object selected, I look over here, I have my real gun and fake gun. These objects need to be defined. So my real gun is the one that's attached to my first person controller. Drag that over. And my fake gun is this one right here. Boom. So now those are assigned. So now it knows which objects to turn on and off. So I can walk over here and I picked up the gun and notice that it's not there on the floor anymore. Okay, perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Now, so now I have a gun in my hand, but it doesn't actually do anything. And that's a problem because I want it to actually do something. Let's see, what would we want a gun to do? Well, when you pull the trigger, the gun is going to have some kind of recoil, right? It's going to move. There's also going to be a muzzle flash and there's going to be a sound effect. Now, we're not going to handle muzzle flash and sound effect because those are things that I think you could probably do on your own if you understand these concepts. I want to dig more into animation and I want to get into animating this gun so that we can see that we're actually firing it. You know what, before we do that though, let's actually create a cursor on our screen so we know where we're shooting, right? All first-person shooters have some kind of cursor that shows where you're shooting, right? And we can handle this pretty easily with user interface. So if I go to create UI, and I'm going to throw in a raw image, excuse me. And that's going to put just a box. Let's double click our canvas so we can see what it looks like. And we can see that we have a box in the middle of our canvas. Let's double click on it again. Oh, I'm moving so slow. All right, so we have a box right there in the middle of our canvas. Now that's probably too big. If we play, it's just this giant box in the middle of the screen. So we want to make that a little smaller. Let's do that now. So let's go to our raw image, and over here on width and height, instead of 100, let's do 3 by 3. And let's test that out and see if that looks good. And it does. So I have this cursor now, so I can see where I'm shooting. Bang, 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 bang. Okay, perfect. Super easy. All right, now we need to actually get into animating our gun. So I'm going to turn my real gun back on so we can actually see it during the animation process. That's important. And I'm going to go to my animator here. I'm going to click Create. I'm going to make sure it's going into my animations folder. And I'm going to call this Fire. And save. All right, so we want this to happen very quickly. So what I want to actually have happen is at frame 0, let's hit the record button so we can make changes. On frame 0, I want it to be exactly where it is right now. So 0.2, negative 0.23, 0.47, and my rotations are going to be 0, 0, 0. So delete the 0. Oh, actually, you have to put in a 1 there, and then delete it in 0. 1, delete 0, 1, delete 0. Okay, so we're going to animate the position and the rotation of this gun. All right, let's go. Guns fire pretty quickly, so let's only go to frame 4. So I'm going to hit 4 and hit enter. We'll go to about frame 4 here. And what we want to do is we want the gun to rotate. Okay, so we want it to, let's shoot up. Yes, we want it to rotate up, and we want it to go, down just a tad bit. Oh, hold on. We're at 0.23, so maybe just a slight, that looks about right. So we want it to boom, 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 like that. All right, and then on frame 10, we want to have it reset to the original values. So let's see, 0.2. So this is back to 0.2, 0 or negative 0.23, negative 0.23, and the rotation is going to be back to 0. So we can see our gun is rotating and moving as we shoot. Now it's probably not the greatest looking firing animation, and you can play around with it. And here's something for those of you who want a little bit more depth. Oh gosh, went too far. If you notice, this real gun has separate objects. Has a hammer, has a magazine, a slide, and a trigger. You can actually animate all of these things independently. You can animate the trigger so that it rotates in. You can animate the hammer so that it cocks back. You can animate the magazine so that it drops when you reload. All these things these are all separate objects, okay? So you can animate those if you want. I'm not going to bother with it, right? I'm fine with just having the animation the way it is. So I'm going to make sure I'm out of record mode, check my animation, make sure it looks good. Okay, good. I'm going to go back to my project folder, go to my animations, look at my fire animation, and I want to turn off loop time. That's gross. I don't like it. Okay, perfect. And I want to let's go to my real gun controller. Now, just like we did last time, we don't want this animation to, actually, you know what? I'm going to leave that alone because our gun's going to be turned off. Actually, yeah, let's do this step because this is actually going to make it like a lot cleaner. So I don't want this to fire as soon as I pick my gun up. You know, that's not a good idea. So I want to do the same thing I did last time, create an empty state and then make it default so that it doesn't do anything until I tell it to do something, right? Okay, so now we have our animation set up. Now we need to go in and actually create a script that handles shooting, that handles the shooting animation. So I'm going to go to my scripts folder down here, and I'm going to create a new script. I'm going to call it shooting. There we go. That works. And I'm going to open up my shooting script. Perfect. Okay, so with this script, we're going to do something a little different, something that you haven't seen before. Even if you're in my programming class, we have never dealt with this new thing we're going to do in this class yet. Okay, so this is something new even for you programming folks. First of all, I'm going to get rid of, we'll leave everything. So what we need to do is we actually need to create what's called an enumerator. An enumerator is, let's see, let's explain it in an easier way. Okay, so there's such a thing called a coroutine, and coroutines are they're kind of like special methods, but they can run at the same time as other methods. So you can have a coroutine that runs at the same time as the method that it's called in, that the coroutine is called in. And those coroutines are handled through objects called enumerators. So instead of our start method, let's actually create an enumerator. So it would be enumerator, and we're going to call this firing handgun. It's pretty easy to do. And inside the enumerator, we're going to, well, let's set some variables. All right, so I'm going to set my variables first. We need a game object for the gun itself. We need, oh yeah, that's all we need. Oh yeah, we also need a Boolean. So we need a bool object. A Boolean object is just checking to see if something is true or false, right? And we're going to say is firing, firing. And we're going to set it equal to false to start because I don't want to be firing the gun as soon as this script is called. So we're setting is firing to false. So inside the enumerator, we want to check to see if we've clicked the mouse button, the left mouse button, because that's the button that's going to fire our gun. Now the way we can tie the left mouse click button to firing the gun is if we go to File, or sorry, no, Edit, Project Settings, and go to Input here and check our axes. We have our Fire 1 axis. And the positive button for Fire 1 is left control or the mouse 0 button. Mouse 0 is actually the left click. So we want to tie this to Fire 1. So what we can do is go back to our script, and in enumerator, we're going to say if input.get button down Fire 1. So if we're clicking the Fire 1 button, which is going to be, in our case, the left mouse click, then we want to also check if is firing equals false, because we don't want to do this if we are firing, right? So we want to check first to see if we've clicked the mouse button. If we have, then we're going to check to see if is firing equals false. Now it's really important that you pay attention to these brackets here. This if statement is inside the enumerator, and this if statement is inside of this if statement. So make sure your hierarchy is set up properly so that you don't make any mistakes when you're writing this code. All right, now the only thing we want to do inside of, actually there are a couple things we want to do. So if we've clicked the mouse button and we're not firing, then we want to, let's set is firing to true right off the bat so that we can't just click the button again and make it fire twice in one frame. And we want to say the gun, because we're going to play the animation. So the gun.get component animator, open and close parentheses, period, play, and we're going to play that animation we just created, handgun fire. Okay. Then we're going to do something called a yield. Yield is going to wait for a certain amount of time, and then it's going to run something else. Okay, so we're going to do yield, return, new, wait for seconds. That's all one word, wait for seconds. And the seconds that we're going to wait is 0.5 f, so half a second. Okay, then we're going to play We're basically going to copy this. Copy. Then we're going to play a new animation, and the animation we're going to play is this fire, or no, sorry, the new state. And my animation's called fire, so I need to go back and change my code. I change it to fire. So let's fire. And the new animation we're going to play is new state. We just want to basically go back to new state. So a new state. Okay, so that's our enumerator, right? But we need to call that coroutine whenever something happens, whenever something is important. Oh, you know what? I did it backward. We need to do, bear with me. So we need to do the if statements inside the update method so that we can check to see what's going on. And then these 4 lines of code are in the enumerator itself. So these 4 lines of code are what's going to happen whenever we pass this. So in here, we actually just need to start the coroutine. Okay, sorry about that. I was, whatever. Okay, so in the update method, we're going to have our if statements. Up here, we're going to actually call the stuff that we're looking for. So make sure your code looks like mine before we write this last statement. All right, so the last thing we're going to write is start coroutine. That's kind of a weird word to spell. So coroutine, coroutine. And the coroutine we're going to start is firing handgun. Oh, that coroutine right up here. We're going to start this, okay? And we need open and close parentheses, and then close parentheses, and a semicolon. So this is what our entire script looks like, okay? So we have our game object, the gun. We have our Boolean, which is checking to see if we're firing or not. We have an enumerator that once it's fired is going to change firing to true. It's going to run our animation. It's going to wait half a second. Then it's going to take us back to the default state of our animator. And the way we make that happen is in our update method, which update is going to be checking constantly. So in our update method, we're going to check to see if we're pushing the fire 1 button. If we are, then we're going to check to see if we're firing, or if firing equals false. If we're not firing, then it's going to call that coroutine. So essentially what this is doing is this is saying that while this coroutine is firing, we're not going to do this. And I actually just noticed an issue with our code. We set firing to true here, but we don't actually set it back to false. So is firing equals false, because we want it to go back to false when this coroutine is done firing. All right, so it's not a lot of code, but it's kind of a complicated subject, but it's not too bad. This just allows us to run this while we're also checking stuff, so no big deal. I'm going to save this, go back to Unity. I'm going to go to my scene view, and I want to attach this shooting script to my real gun. There we go. Oh. Made an issue in my script somewhere. Oh, I put 2 equal signs instead of 1 because I want to assign it to be true, not check to see if it is true. See, small mistakes happen all the time, all the time. You just have to be prepared for them and know how to fix them when they pop up. Okay, so now I can that's weird. I don't want to go to that scripts folder. I want to go to this scripts folder. All right, so now my shooting script, I can drop it onto my gun. And I can notice that right here it has the gun, which is going to be the real gun. Drop that in there. And is firing. So is firing is going to stay off at default. So let's test this out. Oh, I forgot to turn off my gun from the beginning, but whatever. So notice I can shoot and I can click as many times as I want, and it's only going to fire once per half second. And that's a good thing because we don't want this to be able to shoot as quickly as we want. And we can change that increment. All we have to do is go into our code here, and we can change the wait for seconds to go down to, let's say, 0.3. See if that helps. Save. And we can actually make the fire rate a public object that, a public object, a public variable that we can modify in the Unity editor, so we can change our fire rate quickly instead of having to go back and forth from the code. But whatever, that's something we can do later if we want. So now I can shoot faster. That feels a little better. Okay, now notice nothing's happening. All I'm really doing is calling an animation. I'm not shooting a bullet out of my gun. There's no muzzle flash. There's no sound effect. There's nothing. Okay, but that's fine. For this small project, we don't need to get as fancy as we can. But I want to very quickly explain what you would have to do um, in order to make the gun actually play a sound effect. First of all, we need the sound effect in the project somewhere attached to an audio source. Then we would just call the audio source in the code just like we call the animator, and we would play a sound effect. That's it. It's just like playing an animation. You just play the sound effect. As far as the muzzle flash, we'd have to actually create that effect coming off the tip of the barrel, either by using some kind of cool particle effect or something like that. And then we would put that at the end of the barrel only whenever the gun was firing. And it would like emit light and stuff like that. It'd look cool, which again, that's a little bit more advanced for this project. You can do it if you really, I mean, I'm sure there's tutorials out there that'll show you how to do it if you really want a muzzle flash. But that's about it for this part of it. So once you get to this point, you should be able to pick up a gun and walk around the level. And if you wanted to, you could find some other gun uh, models on the asset store, drop them strategically throughout the level, and then whenever you pick up those guns, then it replaces the gun that's in your hand. You would just have to have that gun also attached to your first person character and turned off by default. So that's basically it. That's pretty much the meat of it. You know, we have our cursor there. We can pick up our gun and we can shoot. So in the next video, I think the last video, what we'll probably do is we'll handle actually shooting this thing and actually making something happen to these targets. Okay, we'll make it so the target actually does something when we shoot it. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So thanks for paying attention, and I'll see you next time.